Good afternoon, children. Today we say good afternoon. Today we'll study lesson number 24, substances, objects and energy. There are three things: substances, the matter that we have on the earth is known as substance. Objects, the things we make from the material from which it is made is known as say object. Like this bench is a object made of substance iron or steel or whatever you call it. This door is made of substance wood which is found in the nature. And what is energy? It is not power, but it is capacity to do work. And with what intensity it can be done is known as power. Capacity to do work is known as energy. So we will just read it and I will explain you in between. Okay? Can you tell? When I say can you tell, so you have to start thinking. Something is being asked. Write a few lines on the blackboard with a chalk. Now observe the chalk. I have written. What has happened to the chalk? It has become small. It has become small. That means something is gone away from the chalk. So its size has become small. Where it has gone? It has gone on the board. I have written just now substances, objects and energy. This is the lesson we are reading today, learning today, studying today. So it has gone on the board. When I will rub it with the duster, what will happen? It will get cleaned from the board. So where that dust has written in the white color on the board goes, it goes into the duster. And if you put the duster, bang it slowly on your bench, what will happen? The dust will fall down in the white color. That means it is a solid object made of some chalk, and when we are using it, it is getting converted into fine dust particles. Okay? What changes do you see in the chalk? Wipe the board with the duster and then tap the duster against the table. What do you see? The chalk has become smaller, and when the duster was tapped, particles of chalk fell off from it. These particles were of the same color as the piece of chalk. This tells us that when you wrote on the board, particles of the chalk stuck to the board, and when you wiped the board, they came off. And try this. Take small pieces of candy sugar or coal and pound them in a mortar. उसको एक बर्तन रहता है, you try to pound it with the tool that is available with the mortar, and it becomes small particles. Slowly and slowly it becomes a powder. That means it has got converted into smaller particles. What do you notice? When you pound the coal or the sugar, it turns into a powder. That is, into small particles. You see the picture? He is being pounded. Then there is a sawdust also falling from the wood being cut by the saw. All substances we see around us are made up of very tiny particles. Like this chalk, it is made up of very tiny particles. You must have seen how sawdust or particles of wood fly when the wood is cut with a saw. When iron or copper is made smooth with a file, we get particles of iron or copper. All substances like pencil, chalk, paper, wood, wheat, grain, iron, copper, coal are all made up of fine particles. The main thing that you have to understand is these bigger looking objects are made of fine particles. The small particles of various substances that we can see are themselves made up of many tinier particles. Tiny means very small. Hmm? A tiny boy, small boy, he started just walking. Hmm? Tiny substance. Hmm? छोटी छोटी गोलियां मिलती हैं खाने को तुम लोगों को ना, टाइनी टाइनी. इट्स वेरी स्मॉल, इज नोन एज टाइनी. टाइनियर मीन्स बहुत ही छोटी, बहुत ज्यादा छोटी, इतनी छोटी कि वो दिखाई भी न दे. These tiny particles are so small they are not visible to our eyes. When we keep breaking or making it these chalk particles smaller, 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 finally it will become so small that we will not be able to see from our eyes. Lakhs of particles of any substance must come together to form a particle that can be visible to us. That means a particle that can be seen by naked eyes or with my glasses is made up of lakhs of particles, smaller particles, tinier particles. Now you understand the concept of tiny particles, tinier particles, very small particles which cannot be seen by our own eyes. Now use your brain power. Focus your brain on what we are talking now. What are these small particles that can be seen in a beam of light that enters a dark room? These are all particulate matters, things that are floating into the air. We are breathing them inside and throwing out. All these things are going. So that is why the fresh air and the neat and clean air is needed. Do you know the theory of all the substances are made of minute particles was proposed long ago by Kannad Maharshi. Our own Maharshi was there whose name was Kannad. Kannad Maharshi was born in 6th century BC at Prabhas Kshetra near Sorati Somnath in Gujarat. गुजरात में है ये. His given name was Ulu. जैसे तुम लोगों का नाम कुछ होता है और घर पे प्यार से डैडी मम्मी या फ्रेंड्स लोग कुछ और ही नाम से बुलाते हैं ना, तो ही वॉज ऑल्सो पॉपुलरली नोन एज उल्लू. हिज नेम वॉज उल्लू, नॉट उल्लू. He was very wise person. He proposed that all things in the world can be classified into 7 categories. He categorized all the matters in the world into 7 categories. He was also the first to suggest that every object in the universe is made up of minute particles. He named that tiny particle as Pillow. What he named? He named it as very small particle is Pillow. That tiny particles made of small tiny particles, lakhs of tiny particles known as Pillow. Can you tell? If there is a sudden shower, we take shelter under a roof at the roadside. Even though the rain does not fall on us directly, we get wet to some extent. Why? ऐसा क्यों होता है? If it is raining and you stand in the veranda, after some time you will feel that your cloth is almost having some moisture. It is not crispy, dried crispy. The raindrops, that reminds me, you eat chips in the winter, you eat chips in the summer, and you eat chips in the monsoon. What happens? Monsoon chips are not crispy. If you just leave them for 10 minutes, they don't remain crispy. Because some moisture has been attracted by them, some moisture has entered them. The raindrops fall on the road, bounce off, and break up into droplets. These droplets are also made up of tinier particles of water. They make us wet. It means that liquids are also made of small particles. Yeah, we just now were talking about the dust particles. Now we are talking of water particles. Um,